Welcome to No Tippy Tappy Football Live with the brilliant Sam Allardyce and Graeme Souness. Now, if you've been tuning in for the past few weeks, you might be wondering where Natalie is, but I'm Nicole Holiday and I'm in the hot seat today as we talk all things World Cup and pick the brains of our panel. Guys, how are we? I mean, the World Cup is about to start. Are you excited?
That's a Scotsman, really.
I was asking for that, to be fair, Graeme, yeah. You're not buzzing.
Oh, I am. I'm going up there tomorrow. I'm looking forward to it. And I think England, I say it through gritted teeth, but I think they could have a good tournament. I don't think they can win it, but I think they could have a good tournament.
That's a spirit.
I think it's after all the hype on the stuff about, the legalities of taking it out there. They've got fabulous stadiums. They've built fabulous stadiums. I just hope they can cope. But more importantly, I hope the teams that play there dish up some great football. And I think that we don't want too much negativity. We want to see attacking football, lots of exciting football. I think that's what we'd hope for.
I'm sure we will, to be fair. Yeah. Guys, firstly, how do you know each other? Like, as in, when did you first meet? Where? Do you remember?
It's a long time ago. Probably playing against each other.
Yeah, it'll be when we're both playing.
Yeah, I'd be at Bolton, Graeme would be at Liverpool then.
I played 79, 80.
Yeah.
We are that old.
Yeah.
And I can remember we won the league one year, and I think I was the top goal scorer against us. And I scored an OG at Brundon Park one night. I don't know if you played in that game. I think we may have won that night. Well,
I think we only managed to draw in my time playing against Liverpool, so you were that good then. But yeah, it was different days to now. Like, pitches would be a bit muddy or a bit hard, or referees had let it get away with murder. So it was a very,
there's a bit more thuggery allowed in those days.
Thuggery.
That's the politest term I can come up with.
That we can use on here anyway. Yeah. Graeme, what's your view then on Tippy Tappy Football? I could hear someone laughing in the audience already. I'd
start off by saying that the Premier League is fantastic. It's the most watched. It's the richest. It's a great watch most of the time. How can I put it into words? I think when we played, there was fewer bad games, and let me explain why I say that. In our day, the ball was forward quicker. There was always more goal-mouth incidents, I'd imagine. If you're a football supporter, there'd be more to enjoy. I think today, when you've got everybody trying to play like Barcelona at their best 10 years ago, sometimes it becomes a little bit boring.
Okay.
That's
and
why
then factor in the pitches as well.
Well, that's why I called it Tippy Tappy Football, this particular podcast. So, because it bores the pants out of me sometimes, and I sit and watch. If I'm not going to watch a game at the weekend, I'll sit down to watch 12 o'clock.
Corey?
12 o'clock on a Saturday. I probably shouldn't say this, but I can watch 3 o'clock.
Can you say?
Got to cut that one out before it goes out. And I can watch 5:30. And sometimes after 3 o'clock, I go, I'm going to give this one about 20 minutes and I'm going to turn it off because it's not giving me the entertainment value of the Premier League in previous years. And this concept about what I call football brainwashing is we can only play this way. And that's passed over to the public from the press, from the media, from social media now. Chris Hughton got the sack for that. At Brighton, he got sacked because they're not playing the right type of football.
But that's how it's deemed. Yeah. You hear someone gets a job in management. He plays the game the right way. There's no right way or wrong way. Sometimes when you see the goalkeeper for Man City kick the ball 60, 70 yards and he's got the striker ends up with a one-on-one with the goalkeeper, that is the best way. I mean, today it is so predictable how teams play. I mean, I was a season ticket holder at Bournemouth where I lived for a couple of years. And I watched Bournemouth, which is an incredible story for them to be in the Premier League. But Bournemouth were taking on Liverpool, Man City, Chelsea, all the best teams at their game. they were rolling out from the back, and City were all over them, swarming all over them, nicking it off them, and the better teams were winning easily because you've got a little old Bournemouth try to play the same game as big Man City or big Liverpool. You have to be flexible. There's no right or wrong way. The winning way is the right way.
Play to win.
There we go. I like that. Hopefully, the World Cup football will be quite exciting. So England are kicking off their campaign against Iran. So we asked both of you for your starting 11s for that game. Do you even remember what you said? I've got it written down.
Well, you start.
No, I've got Pickford. I did change Walker for Shaw left back, Trippier right back. I've gone Stones and Dyer, 2 City midfield players, Bellingham and Rice, and then I've gone Saka on the right.
You've gone Maddison.
Maddison in the hole, and Phil's Foden and Kane up front.
So you actually picked 8 of the same players, which
it's not bad.
No, it's not bad. The players that you've picked that are the same: Pickford, Trippier, Stones, Dyer, Rice, Maddison, Foden, and Kane. You've picked different formations. Graham, you have also picked.
I initially picked Walker, didn't I? Picked Walker.
Yeah, and then you put Dyer in. So you've also got Harry Maguire.
Yeah, that's twice you've said his name.
That's rude. Trent Alexander-Arnold and Raheem Sterling. And then Sam, you've got Shaw, Bellingham and Saka. So any strong disagreements with some of the other ones' players?
I don't think
he's a manager. Being a manager, I've been a manager. Just preferences. I mean, my team was picked for the back 3. I've now gone Dyer, Maguire and Stones. Is that correct?
Yeah, you have, yeah.
I've gone Trent on the right, and I've gone Trippier on the left because I think he's better than Shaw on that side. No Chilwell there, obviously. And then I've gone with Maddison and Rice sitting. So Maddison midfield player, Rice sitting up front. I've gone with Sterling because I think I don't think he lets England down. Saka's a young man that we may see in the World Cup, depending how results go. Now Sterling plays. And then on the right side, Foden, who I actually think is destined to be an absolute star. And Kane up front. You're asked by newspapers and other people that I work for, pick a youngster who's going to be the rising star. And they started throwing all these names, foreign names. Pedri at Barcelona, the other guy at Barcelona who played for Spain. You've got one on your doorstep. Foden could be an absolute worldie.
Okay. You've also gone for Trent in your team.
Yeah, I know why you've asked that.
Go on then, Graham. Take the stage.
I mean, I think once you get across the halfway line and you're attacking, he is the best wing-back, full-back out there in world football. The way he kicks the ball, his delivery. If there's any golfers in the room, he's got every single club in his bag. He can fade it, he can drive it, he can draw it. He's got a wonderful right foot. So the hardest thing in football to do is score goals. Now, I come with all due respect to Iran, England. This is a Scotsman term. England are playing the mighty Iran. That's why I've gone for him.
Okay, Sam, why isn't Trent in your team then? Because you were nodding along.
Honest, no question about his ability. It's just he's mentally at the moment he's struggling confidence-wise, and I saw him doing some of the things that I would never expect him or seem to do. And probably Graham's right. That's probably me being a big daft centre half. Sort of looking at his defensive side and what's happened to him at Liverpool a bit, and he actually got substituted recently. So it's a confidence game for me. Is he got enough confidence to go and forget about what's happened at Liverpool and just go and be same with Maguire? I mean, I think it's been a bit of a disgrace what's happened to him not being picked for Manchester United over what is a 5'10", 5'8" centre half.
But surely the argument is because obviously I was going to come on to Harry Maguire next because he is a big talking point, has been for a while now. He's not playing, but also when he has been playing, he's not been in form, Sam.
No, he's not been in the greatest of form, and then again, I think that Gareth is a pretty loyal person So that's probably why he may well pick him. My formation, different to Graham, just to go on that, is we're playing Iran. I don't think we need to be worried too much defensively, only about counter-attacking. And it's more about creativity and scoring goals against what will most of the time be an 11 behind the ball. So Foden can score goals, Kane, Saka, Maddison's been scoring goals for fun for Leicester.
He's in brilliant form.
You know what I mean? So that was the way I saw it. And obviously fullbacks, both fullbacks will be able to venture forward, which is natural for them, for their teams. Perhaps not as good as Trent Alexander-Arnold, but they're both in good form.
Surely, I mean, you guys can tell me as former players, with Harry Maguire, confidence-wise, isn't that going to be an issue? And he'll know that all eyes are on him, and people might be waiting to be like, you see Gareth?
You mean the press?
Yes, the press.
Would be waiting. Yeah, they'll be waiting.
Or fans as well, because, football
Yeah,
fans,
well, the press,
football.
the fans have been brainwashed by the press.
Do you think?
Oh, totally. Utterly. It's never stopped, has it?
See, that's my fear. If a Scotsman can have a fear about England doing well at a World Cup. But my fear, I mean, I joke about it, but I have to admit, the English football has been absolutely fantastic for me. The lifestyle it's given me and the experiences I've had. But that's my fear for England, that other than Harry, I don't know what you feel, other than Harry scoring goals, where else are the goals going to come from? I know you've mentioned Foden, who I've given my opinion about him. Maddison, I'm an enormous fan of his. He had to be in the squad, and that's why I've started him in my 11. Yeah. I think if we're going on to, you want to continue about Harry Kane? Harry Kane is a world-class player. My definition, we're in a business now where everyone's a club legend, everyone's a great player. Nearly everyone's a world-class player. I'll give you my definition of a world-class player. You're a world-class player, in my opinion, if you could leave the club you're at and go and get in anyone else's team. England have one world-class player, in my opinion.
Harry.
Kane, I'm guessing, not Maguire. Just to.
Did I say Maguire?
No, you said Harry Kane. We were chatting about Maguire earlier.
Harry Kane is a worldie for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you know what? As a Spurs fan, oh
you
my
agree
God,
totally.
we have to cut that. As an Arsenal fan, Graham, I have to admit, I agree with you. On the subject of where goals are going to come from, though, also Bukayo Saka.
He's not on my team. It'll be difficult for him.
No.
That's true.
Well, I mean,
very, very magical.
when we talk about confidence with Trent and Harry Maguire, we've got the man with superb confidence, because Arsenal are top of the league at the moment and creating and scoring and continue to do so. So that confidence is like sky high up there. And obviously can make goals, can keep hold of the ball as well as Phil Foden. So it is my big doubt about England not creating enough and actually scoring enough goals in tournaments. And that's been the same in the World Cup, and that's been the same in the Euros last time out. And basically the defensive unit being so great is what's actually got them through, because they've only needed one goal to get there, or a 2-1. They've never really actually scored.
They've not properly bashed teams up, have they?
No, never. And a lot of the goals have actually, certainly the World Cup, 65% of the goals were from set plays, either corners or penalties. So it's a little bit of a worry about the creativity of the team. And that comes about too slow a build-up. When you get too slow a build-up, you don't get through those lines as quickly as possible, then you're ending up having to break 11 down all the time. And that is a difficult job at every level.
And I think you've gone with two holding midfield players. Yeah. See, I think England are very good players, and I've not gone. I've only got Rice as a holding midfield player, and I think that should be enough against the mightier Iran and against the mighty USA and against the mighty Wales. With all due respect to any Welshman here, it is England now, and I think that's where the pragmatic approach comes from with the manager. I think that jumps out at me. He's super cautious. And it's that we're playing football that will nick games. We're not playing football that's going to go out and get everyone on the edge of their seat. Yeah. So that's why I play Maddison. I think I know Maddison's stats are the best of any attacking midfield player or any midfield player, full stop, in terms of assists and scoring goals. I also like the boy Mount at Chelsea.
Yeah,
Like him.
I agree.
But
He's
I
not in
think
either of
Maddison,
your lineups, right?
but I think you pick. I think Maddison's in front of him.
What
at this
about
time.
Jude Bellingham? Because he's not in
What
your
about him?
lineup. He's in. Oh, come on, Graham. He's a brilliant young.
He's heading
talent,
for the
isn't
top, and before I can see. Obviously, they preferred to, but for his injuries and his lack of appearances, would have been Calvin Phillips.
Yeah.
But I think Bellingham's proved enough to actually be in there, and it isn't too much of an actually sitting midfield player, not like Declan Rice or Calvin Phillips. So I think that there's, as Graham said, it's the mighty Iran, and everybody will expect 3-0, something like that.
Before anyone digs me out, I was part of the World Cup squad for Scotland in '78 when we managed a really, really tough draw with Iran in 1978. So before we go any further, before there's any smart arses out there.
Graham, how important could it be for Liverpool to sign Jude Bellingham? Because there's been a lot of talk about that.
I think all the big guns are after him, and I think Liverpool would do well to sign him. But I think they'll have stiff opposition. I'm not in the way of football today. If Real Madrid come for you, you generally end up there.
He turned Manchester United now to go to Germany.
But he's a player. I like him very much.
So,
But I just think there's more goals in James Maddison. And I like James Maddison. I met him on holiday in Portugal last year. I don't know if you've met him. And he's got a bit of mischief about him. I
see that, yeah.
Where did you meet him? In the club?
In a restaurant. No, it wasn't that. That was later.
Beyond the Algarve somewhere.
Yeah. So, but he's got a sparkle about him. He's got something that I find attractive in
character.
Yeah, he's got a bit of mischief.
Yeah.
And that's mischief sort of can take you from a scale of 1 to 10. He's a 9.
His stats stand up, and he's in a struggling team, by the way. They've struggled all season, haven't they? He's been, he's the one been actually getting them out of trouble now and climbing up that league. But I mean, they went, was it 10 games at 1 point, I think. And he's got all those assists and contributions, goals. So can only get better from his point of view if he gets a chance. Whether he'll get a chance in the starting lineup is another matter.
2 players we should probably also talk about who haven't made the England squad, Tomori and Tammy Abraham. Do you think that there is, aside from Jude Bellingham, do you think the fact that they're not playing here has maybe been a part of that?
Possibly, because he probably hasn't got enough. I would have thought he'd send enough scouts out to go and watch them. I don't know whether he's been himself.
You can see all the games on television.
Yeah,
It's not like it used to be. You can watch them on telly.
Yeah, you can get all the stats as well if you want. But I think it's perhaps a bit of from my point of view, perhaps with Harry Kane and Callum Wilson only. Perhaps certainly, another centre forward would have been my choice. Perhaps.
See, definitely.
Whether that's Abrahams or Tony, who knows, from Brentford.
Definitely. I think it still exists today, but certainly when I played, there was if you played for Man United, if you played for any of the big clubs, you played for your country, and I think that still exists today. Maybe not as much, but certainly that existed and exists, in my opinion, today. I think I just don't think I think they've got better players to choose from playing here in England. I think by the fact that you have to go the league to play in today is the Premier League. Everybody wants to be in the Premier League. The spotlight's on it. The dosh is here. You stay here if you can. So I think there's an element. They're in Italy for a reason. They're there because none of the really big guys would want them here.
I would say if you've been playing very well and you're in form, so like Tomori has been brilliant, shouldn't that count for something regardless of...
Who says he's been playing brilliant?
You don't think that he's...
I've not seen enough of him, but...
Okay.
I'm asking who has said he's been playing brilliant.
I think a lot of fans. I think the media would say that he's been...
Sam's point.
There you go.
The media's wrong.
No, it's up to
Gareth. Not wrong.
It's up to Gareth Southgate and his right-hand man.
Yeah.
And they deem that they've got better players than him.
Well, and I guess it's quite a nice place for Gareth Southgate to be. The fact that we have so much talent right now in England to pick from.
Personally, I think the talent is as good as it's ever been and has been since his reign. And this time now, they've gained all the experience to go with it. Whereas probably a little lack of experience last World Cup. Euros gained even more experience, failed at the last hurdle. This time, less excuses, and to not go all the way, because each individual is covered by another outstanding, talented individual behind him. And it's a difficult choice between either or who's the best one to play. And obviously, that's a great headache for a manager, because he can still cover any problems that he may have, whether it be illness, injury, sending off. He's going to have a lot of confidence, for me, in the replacement. So we haven't talked about Jack Grealish or anybody like that. You know what I mean? A man who holds the ball better than anybody else in the England side, but just didn't quite score enough goals for the position.
3 goals this year.
Yeah,
playing for Man City.
So
it's not enough.
Not enough.
I feel like that's actually a really good point, Sam, because Jack Grealish was the name that during the Euros everyone was constantly singing and chanting, and there was a lot of pressure on Southgate to be playing Jack Grealish. It kind of feels like Maddison's almost taken over as that name that people were really cheering on.
But the significant difference there is that stats jump out at you with Maddison. They don't jump out at you with Jack. And I've got the hump with Jack because I didn't give him a bit of stick, just pointed out, your stats got to be better, son. Yeah. And he came back at me a bit, and then he invited me out for dinner, and I accepted as long as I get to choose the restaurant and get to choose the wine. And he's never been back to me.
So Jack,
so I don't think he has enough.
Oh gosh.
Brilliant.
The final thing that you guys didn't really agree on is Saka or Sterling. So who's gone for?
I went for Saka because the form is in at Arsenal, and I don't think Sterling's quite hit it off at Chelsea, which like Graeme said, doesn't mean to say when you go and play for England it doesn't happen, but just for that reason, he's on top form at Arsenal, and they are top of the league, and everything's, the confidence he must have now going into the England squad must be fantastic. So just for that reason alone, had it been Raheem Sterling at Man City scoring like he was scoring and playing every week like he was playing, yes, I would have picked him.
Okay, Graeme?
I think for a number of reasons, I think Sterling's never really let England down. I think he turns up. Saka, inexperienced at this level, is paramount that you get a good result in your first game. And I think Sterling will feel he has a point to prove, and I think that's always a good thing. He's been getting by the new manager at Chelsea, Graham Potter, is being used as a wing back. If he was sitting between us now, and he's made the right noises. He's made the right noises about, I'll play anywhere. The manager wants to try new systems. But if he was sitting here and he was being completely honest, the last place he wants to be is playing wing back. That is a hard yards. With his pace doing the really difficult stuff, which is creating and scoring goals. He's direct, he's quick. Yeah, he's not a lovely clean kicker for the ball. If he was, he'd be 20 goals a season. Yeah. But he is a threat. No one likes to play against pace. And I just, have him back, chasing back towards your own goal, I see that as a bit of a waste of his energies and his talent. I'd get him up the pitch, taking people on, and I think at this World Cup he'll want to prove people wrong about him.
Yeah.
Himself.
I think that's quite a fair point, because there are probably a few players who at club level their form hasn't been great, and Graeme, like you said, I imagine in an England shirt they will want to perform obviously as best as they can on stage to the world and prove a point and prove what they can do. So it will be an interesting one. On this game then, England versus Iran. I know you've been saying the mighty Iran, but you can't write anyone off, surely. No. How do you expect this game to play out? An England win?
Well, obviously the huge pressure is when the first game comes along and everybody expects you to win handsomely, comfortably, however you want to call it, and that means that your team has to assert itself right from the very first whistle for me to get the goal as early as possible. Yeah. Because the longer it goes and the more it drifts on, and the more the game goes by, and they haven't broken them down, and they haven't created, the pressure then builds and builds and builds on the players, and ultimately they need that early goal, and then try and go from there, because that will actually draw the opposition out a little bit. The longer the opposition sit behind the ball and frustrate England, the more difficult it's going to be in the end.
I think it's paramount that you get off to a good start in the group stages. I think England will. I don't see them rolling them over. I think they've got Carlos Queiroz as coach. He's returned. They, and many of those players' eyes, will be think we're in a shop window here. Everyone wants to play around and play in Europe on bigger leagues. But I don't think it'll be easy for England. I think England have to win, because you do not. If you in England's case, if England draw that game, they'll get dogs abused, and then its pressure's enormous going into the second game. So they have to win. Don't have to win 5-0. Just win the game.
Win the game.
Yeah.
Feel good factor going forward. You've got 3 points in the bag, and it's like a snowball rolling down a hill. Just keep gathering momentum, and that's what England have to do. They cannot draw or, dare I say it, lose this first game. They've got to be on it. But you see, anything can happen. Absolutely anything can happen. Yeah. I think England will win. They have to win the first game.
Okay, I want a precise prediction for England versus Iran.
2-0.
So, okay, there we go, Sam. I was going to say.
There you go.
A player to score and a scoreline. So, Graeme, are we happy with 2-0? That seems
I'm happy with that. I'm happy with that. A 2-goal advantage.
Yeah.
One's Harry Kane, and the next one will be a set piece.
That is
off a corner.
Very specific, Sam. Okay, let's go.
I've had a bet on it with William Hill.
Okay, let's take.
I thought we were getting free bets.
Let's do 2-0 to England and Harry Kane to score. Mm-hmm. Yeah? We happy with that?
I'm more than happy with that.
Brilliant. Okay, that is it for part one. We'll be back shortly. Welcome back to No Tippy Tappy Football Live with Sam, Graeme, and we have the brilliant Simon Jordan joining us now.
Nice to be here.
Thank you. Simon, I know you heard some of the chat in the first part.
Yes. Very enlightening.
I feel like you've probably got some opinions on stuff that we spoke about, but
sure.
We are going yes, I do. We're going to go straight into a topic that everyone will probably know about unless they've been hiding under a rock this week. Cristiano Ronaldo, and that interview. I want to know your opinions on the situation itself. I guess if he were a teammate of yours or if he were a player under you, how would you feel and how would you handle it? Who wants to go first?
I've literally just come off air and had a real set-to with Piers Morgan about what I thought was a very puerile interview and not one that had much investment in actually getting anyone to answer a question besides advertise the whine-a-thon that Cristiano Ronaldo feels the need to avail us of. Look, I think it's a challenging subject because you've got a player, in my view, this was a marriage made in hell from the outset. You've got a fading superstar coming into a football club which is being badly run for a significant period of time without a great deal of leadership, and a club that gets so much media attention and so much politics behind the scenes and out in the media that you're always going to have this landscape. Then you've got a new manager coming in with a very difficult task in hand, and all of those things form a backdrop that creates a scenario where you've got difficulties afoot. I look at Ronaldo's handling of it, and whilst you make exceptions for the exceptional, but you do also have to have standards about what you think is right for your football club and what you think isn't right. And whilst Ronaldo is the exceptional item that I'm talking about, there is a way that a big football club should be able to behave. And this football club, despite the fact this kid has 500 million followers, whatever else we'd have to think is important in a social media world, this football club is still bigger than the Cristiano Ronaldos of the world. So I'm disappointed. I'm disappointed that the interview lands in the way that it did. I'm disappointed it lands with the likes of Piers Morgan, and I'm disappointed that it brings the sort of the spirit of football, the legacy of this player, and the landscape around Manchester United into an area of disrepute. So I think there's no winners in this. The only winner will be Ronaldo getting precisely what he wants, which is probably his contract being terminated.
Yeah, Sam, what are your thoughts on this end? Do you feel like, I mean, it's quite obvious what I guess Ronaldo was doing by doing this interview, because there's no going back after something like that, is there?
No, I think that today's problem is this. Today's problem is your execution as a disciplinarian, as a manager, has long gone. And now you are not a manager, you are a first team coach with less power, particularly for discipline, than we would ever like to admit to. So, as a manager of great experience, you go to the board and you go, this is right at the start of the season, and go, I am the new manager, I want you to move him on. He's asked to leave, I don't want him here. You move him on, move him out as quick as you possibly can. And if you don't, the repercussions are exactly what you see now. Because however well he played last year, however many goals he scored last year, Ten Hag had decided that he wasn't going to be for him. And we all know that Ronaldo's not going to put up with the substitutes bench for too long before he's going to throw his wobbler, which he has taken a lot longer than I actually thought it would, you know. So you have been let down by the owners, in my opinion, by the fact that you go. If he hasn't gone and told them, then it's his own fault. If he did go and tell them and say, move him on, let him go. He scored 20 odd goals last year. Everybody's seen him as okay, but he's a fading genius, because that's what he was. He was an absolute superstar in his time. So handling to the manager would be my. And if the club at the hierarchy let you down, which I think that they have, if he did say it, that's your real problem there. Man United haven't learnt, going into this new era, what they should have learnt 3 or 4 years ago.
Where does he go from here then, Graham?
Well, can I just give you my opinion
Sure.
on what I think has happened? I think he wanted to leave in the summer. He wasn't happy with whatever Man United. Man United needed him, and I believe he would still be an asset for them. I think he's said he wanted to leave. He meets the manager who wants him to stay.
Does he?
Well, that's a question. Wants him to stay. But then it comes back to your argument about how much power do managers have. They meet in a room. 2 people leave the room. 2 people are happy with what each other has said. Ronaldo starts in the first game against Brighton. They lose. Ronaldo starts in the second game against Brentford. They get bashed up properly. I think after that game, they've gone, you know what? It's all to do with Ronaldo not being able to do the high press. It's all about Ronaldo. Leave him out for a couple of weeks. They lose 6-3 to Man City. The manager's asked after the press conference, why did you not bring Ronaldo on? Out of respect. 2 weeks later, he refuses to go on against Spurs. He leaves them out of the group. He trains with the younger guys and seemingly trained very, very well. Consummate professional.
Yeah.
And then 2 weeks after that, he asks him to be captain. So I think there's mixed messages coming about. Where I think they've fallen down, I think after the second game, when the manager may have said, we're not going to start with him, I think that's a conversation he has to have with Ronaldo. Where they are right now, this was always going to happen with Ronaldo. There was never going to be an easy exit. They were always going to fall out, and you're falling out with arguably the greatest player that's ever kicked a ball. I don't buy into the thing about where Man United are right now. There is still a place for Ronaldo. Ronaldo got 18 goals last year. That was one more than Harry Kane.
Yeah.
I think it was 26 goals in total. Yes, he doesn't play any wider than the width of the box. He wants to be in and around the box. He doesn't want to do the hard yards. But Man City were winning the league with a similar type of player called Aguero. He wasn't doing the hard yards, but they still won the leagues. And I still think we're in the situation Man United are right now, with the group of players they have, there's still a place for Ronaldo.
He hasn't done the hard yards because he can't do the hard yards. And if Ten Hag wants the hard yards, he has to change the way the tactics are. You can't ask your leading goal scorer to do closing from the front if it's not him. Alan doesn't do the hard yards at Man City. And yet Man City have been renowned for the fact that they're an high-pressing side all over the side. Alan's come in. You don't see him do the pressing the rest of the team.
Neither did Aguero, son.
I know.
And so Pep's the instigator of the high press.
Yeah.
Simon, you look unsure.
Yeah, I mean, it's a pointless exercise comparing where Man United are to where Man City were, because Man City were a far better team than Manchester United are now. Squaring this,
I'm not making that comparison.
that's why you're saying that.
That's why I've said that there is a place for.
But
Ronaldo
you're saying that
Man
Aguero
United,
didn't press because perhaps there wasn't the same necessity that there might be at Man United. I'm not going to argue with you about the nature of football, because you'll tell me you've been in for 40 years and you'll never use that in an argument unless, of course, you're losing, right?
It's not a good idea.
But
there's two of us here as well.
I know, absolutely. So I wanted to
Three
address.
of us.
Who might know more than me?
Well,
Yeah. Right. But if you square these circles and look at them logically, all right. First of all, Ten Hag made the announcement. It's got nothing, bugger all to do with the owners. The manager made the observation from the get-go he wanted this player. So let's kick.
I'm not thinking go back. What did you say? Nothing to do with the manager made an announcement about what
the manager in his first press conference spoke to the Ronaldo situation, which was always going to be the first question out of the media's mouth. Right? They're going to want to know what's happening with Ronaldo, because Ronaldo will be purported to be playing in a side that's not going. Well, it's not going to be purported. It's going to be playing in a side that's not playing in the Champions League. So there's always going to be that question. It's an easy question for the media to go to. And Ten Hag's answer to it was, "I want to retain Ronaldo. He's a big part of my plans." And this is where I can't square your particular circle, because it makes no sense to me what you say in this particular instance. Why a manager would go to a player that he knows he's going to have a problem with, unless he's really stupid.
Are we talking about the start of the season?
I'm talking about the idea that you have, which I think is for the birds, that he had a conversation with the player, told him that he was going to do something, promised the player something, then breached that promise, whatever that promise was. I said a pack of lies the other day. You wanted to pull me back in and say that's a bit hyperbole. But the point
having
is,
worked with Simon briefly,
yeah.
He has got a tendency to exaggerate things. So it might have been
Yeah.
It might have been one sentence.
No, I've got
a pack of lies from one sentence.
Yes, I sometimes you use hyperbole to get around some of the nonsense that you guys talk. But the point is that there was an observation made by you that the manager and the player have had a conversation, and where this has gone bandier than it would have done is that the manager has said something that he subsequently not followed through on, and possibly had no intention of following through on. So with that in mind, what would be the purpose of that? What would be the purpose of anyone with any sense to say, I've got a problem with this player, I'm not going to play him, and I'm going to have that problem anyway, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell him I'm going to play him, so I can have twice the problem 3 months later.
Conversation before. I have no idea what Sam is about to say. Seriously, how would you answer? How would you answer that?
I would answer that is if I'm walking into a football club with Ronaldo and Ronaldo's status, and I sit down with the Bergkrantz press conference, and they say, "What do you think about Ronaldo?" I say he's going to be a big part of the side. Because I'm going to say he's not going to be part of my team. I'm going to be slaughtered across the board in the world of football by saying this is the wrong manager for Manchester United, full stop. So you got to do. You learn how to bull. Get a good politician, sit him down with you, say how do you deal with the press. He'll tell you bull. Well, you don't want a question to answer a different one. Get by it, get over it. Yes, whatever happens after that is whatever happens after that.
And that's
what you do.
And that's fine, and I can accept that, and I think that's a reasonable assessment of the situation, because if it is his first press conference, he's going to be dealt with a difficult question. Thereon afterwards, with the real world in mind, if the manager doesn't want Ronaldo, then the discussion needs to be had with the owners, and there's no reason why that discussion wouldn't happen. If you've got a Saudi club being you did, but Graham possibly didn't. If you look at the
didn't, but surely when he states he wants to leave. It's just common sense.
Let's assume he did say that. Yeah.
Common sense, which let's not try and exaggerate common sense because in present company. But it's the manager speaks to the player. You accept that what's happened or not happened at the start of the season. Yeah or no?
Well, based upon what you said earlier on in the summer, no.
Yeah or no?
Because you told me no.
So no.
You'd fly around the world and go and see him and prostitute yourself and fly around and wash his feet.
I never managed the best player in the world. So, are you accepting that he met him or didn't meet him?
I would assume that he would have met him. Yeah.
So, would you accept that they've met and they've both left that room and there was an understanding?
Yeah.
Possibly.
Yes or no?
Yeah. Possibly.
Yes or no? So then
depends if you're obtuse. Sometimes you football managers talk in riddles.
You see what I have to draw with.
But they do. They do. I've employed buggers like this.
You would know all about managers, 8 managers in 10 years.
I do. So I know you're all riddles wrapped up in enigmas.
I've got you saying yes or no,
must have made
which
some
is a
bad
bit of a
choices.
victory. So they both leave that room. They're both happy.
This is the Souness version of events.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm going to get to that. Why I think they were both happy. So they both leave the room. They're very happy. Ronaldo starts.
So now Ronaldo wants to stay
Well, Ronaldo starts in the first game.
in your Narnia.
Ronaldo starts in the first game. Ronaldo starts in the second game, and they lose. They play 2 games and they lose 2 games.
He was on the bench against. He was a bench
I think
against
the
Brighton.
managers had a fright and gone,
Wow.
We've got to change something.
What
again.
job's
That's
this
what
I've
I believe
got?
happened.
He was on the bench against Brighton.
That's what I believe happened.
I did, yeah.
So he's
Okay.
so Ronaldo is the fall guy in your analogy.
And there's
No,
no
it's
room.
not fault.
There's
It's
no
not-
room for
it's not
anybody else.
blameless.
Move on
He's not
from
blameless.
Ronaldo, quick.
Well,
These two have got to fly together to Qatar.
we should just leave.
Imagine
Yeah,
what
we
it'll
should
be like
leave them
later
to
on.
it, Sam.
They'll still be at it, honestly. Bloody hell.
With Ronaldo, just to kind of end that, but quickly, I want to know where you guys think he's going to go from here, because he's going to leave Man United.
I think the relationship's over. I
Yeah.
think it's done. It's dusted.
So where's he going? He's not retiring.
Well,
is he?
If
according
I'm a
to
betting
him,
man, I'd say Chelsea.
Oh,
I think there's a further act to play in this, because whilst I think some of the things that I listened and watched the show, and I had a long conversation with Piers Morgan about it, which most certainly wasn't a meeting of the minds. No, because he was on the radio. He was on the radio because it's his interview, wouldn't it? I would be talking about the interview that Piers Morgan did, wouldn't I? I wouldn't be talking about the interview that Robin Cook did, would I? But the point is,
See, you've learned something. You want to get him on fire.
But the
mention
point
Piers.
is that I think there's another act to play in this, because whilst there's a balance between saying that Man United ignore this nonsense and turn it into what it is and deal with contract and dealing with the severance of his contract, i.e. severing it, not paying him up. The alternate point of view, which I would be inclined to do if I was Man United, was if there wasn't a lot of substance. You can't argue about the substance of the fact the club's eroded. You can't argue against the ideals that it's not been the same club since Ferguson left. Everyone, blind pew, can see that, right? But you can argue about some of the things that are being alleged of executives, the manner in which the club has handled him, the manner in which the managers handled him. And if there is no substance in that, and Ronaldo is winding it up to achieve an outcome, then if I'm Manchester United, given the fact I'm an NYSE stock listed business, I'm built in a certain way, I would want to come rearing back, irrespective of this superstar, and put him in his place and put him in the picture as to what it looks like to be dealing with very significant businesses with big brand reputations.
Doesn't happen anymore, that though, Simon. It
Maybe.
It used to happen. It doesn't happen anymore. It's too valuable they are.
Do you remember when it all changed? Anelka, Arsenal.
Yeah.
hey.
We're not selling them at any price.
Yeah.
Oh yes, you do.
Yes, you do.
did.
Yeah.
20
But no
million
one's going to be selling Ronaldo.
Berbatov at Tottenham.
It's a point of principle.
Berbatov.
It's a point
The
of
valuable
correction.
assets that declining, like I mean, and that's a problem. Like I mean, the only one that succeeded that way, Simon, is at Tottenham when they wouldn't sell Harry Kane.
Harry Kane, yeah.
That's the only one that's actually managed to keep him at the club. The
But they're not
rest
going to
have
sell
all,
Ronaldo, are they,
have all
Sam?
been sold off.
There's no
well,
financial
no, but they
transaction
need,
in this.
from the manager's sake, at this moment in time, they have to
Cut him loose.
let him go. I'd say go back to Italy, because I think he'd still be great there. Still score lots and lots of goals.
Somebody's obsessed with the challenge that Messi's thrown down with goals in the Champions League. He wants to go to a Champions League team with a chance of winning it.
Well, we'll see what happens. Simon, if you were to
Tell me.
take over another club,
Yep.
would
God
you
help
have?
us! God help us!
Thank you, Sam. Would you have this one or Graham as a manager?
Honestly,
That's a really good
No.
question.
it's a good one. It's a good question, and I met these two boys. These were two of the first managers I ever met when I first bought Palace. I met Sam smoking a fag, I think. It was,
Yeah.
in the
Classic.
in the tunnel.
That's right.
On the way to, and he
I
was very
did, yeah.
kind to me. And I met Graham, and our first game
Were we in the
ever.
gym? Were we in the gym?
No, we were in the boardroom at Blackburn Rovers after you beat us 2-0 in my first ever game. So I have respect and fond memories of these guys because they're quite courteous towards me, and it was new. You know.
That was fucking then.
I know it's changed now. And Graham sort of introduced it. I think his opening line to me was "Welcome to the Madhouse." I said, "Well, it's a madhouse. I'll fit right in here." Now the difficulty for me is employing Sam was I would find it difficult to employ someone that actually refers to themselves as Big Sam.
Because I am.
I would struggle with that. Right? I would have difficulty with that.
Yeah.
Now on the Graham front, it's like a dynamic of two experiences. The experiences of my images of Graham before I started working with him on a broadcasting channel, and the ones before. So having worked with him on a broadcasting channel, absolutely not. Having worked with him and having had experience with him over the years and watched him as a player, watched him as a manager, watched him as a leader, yes, I absolutely would. And I did want to. I interviewed him in 2006. What I say is an interview. We had a conversation at dinner in Marbella and talked about the particular concept of coming to manage Palace. And he let me down badly. And I ended up taking Peter Taylor, and I've never forgiven him for it. But yes, the answer is yes, because I don't sit in this camp. And I've spoken to Sam about this briefly before, about this idea that the media pigeonhole you based upon their lack of knowledge and understanding of what people actually do. People position Sam Allardyce as this archaic manager that plays a certain brand of football that doesn't have any outlook besides a brand of football that's not particularly easy on the eye. And I didn't subscribe to that view. I thought he was a good manager. I felt that he produced teams that were successful with the resources that he had. I also understood, because I knew his chairman, Bill Gartside, God rest his soul, and Eddie Davis, the owner of Bolton, that there was a lot more to it. So I felt that the maligning of Sam was wrong. And I felt that he was a very, very good manager. I think he was the architect of his own downfall with the England situation, but that's a different discussion. And as far as Graeme is concerned, Graeme is a leader. And a leader as a person, he's a very strong character. And I think people's perception of me, and it's wrong and it's uneducated like a lot of the media is, I'm not interested in doing their job. I might have an opinion every now and again because I owned a football club, I should have. But I don't want to have a dog and bark. I don't pay these guys a lot of money to go down to the training ground or be in the dressing room working out what it is they're doing. I can see what they're doing on a Saturday afternoon. So both of these were self-starters. Both of these were leaders. Both of these would have made my life a much easier situation because they would have been producing a team which is reflective of what I wanted. It might not have always got the outcomes, but if you can see what they're doing and the reasons why you're doing it, then these are the kind of managers you want. People will say the game's moved on. Graeme faces that argument sometimes because he makes it simple, and I think he's right.
It comes from you.
No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. I always defend you.
When you called me a dinosaur.
Yeah, well, for different reasons. Right? A majestic beast is what I meant. But I also think that, people have views on things. Graeme, I was the first person to defend him when he made a fair observation on Sky when a man's game was being played by men with the sole participants being men. He remarked upon it. It's back to being a man's game, and of course the world piled in on him. And I'd be the first person to say that wasn't appropriate for people to try and pigeonhole Graeme in that particular way. But I think at the time, both of these guys, I would have taken
That's nice. Look at you three getting on.
In saying that, when he said if that's what he said, Simon, about letting you get on with your job, there's, God almighty, the amount of interference I've had with them boys upstairs drives you absolutely crazy, like you mean. So, that alone, employing you and saying, here, this is your position, this is my job title, you can get on with that. I will liaise with you. My success, but anywhere I've been, has always been the communication between me, a chief executive, a sporting director, and or the actual owners. Without that, any of the clubs that I've been successful at, whether it's just saving them or taking Bolton into Europe for the first time, has always been about them relationship with the owners or the people that run the club.
Guys, which team then do we think will be calling Big Sam in February to help keep them up?
Do you want me to be nice, or do you want me to give you an authentic answer?
Do I, Simon?
No, I mean, it's difficult. It's when we're sort of middle of a loving. I can't bait and switch back to what I think. I think that time has gone.
Yeah, it might have.
I think that time has gone.
Yeah. Can I ask, would you go back?
I
say yes.
Yes, probably.
Nothing would tempt me back into management.
Really?
Yeah, I'm too old now. Yeah, what you alluded to earlier, where the relationship between manager and the people, you call them upstairs, but really should be below you. It's just.
You mean the people pay your wages, Gray? Those people, yeah.
I wasn't.
I wasn't
referring to you, I promise. But it's just. Yeah, I just did not want to be answerable to the type of people that were making football decisions. It's my last job was the worst job I had at Newcastle.
He told me not to go, and he was right.
It was just a horrible job. And
what does interfering? Just out of curiosity, so I can learn something from this conversation. What does interfering
I had a
look
chairman,
like?
His son was an agent.
I know that. Well, you're talking about Freddie, right? But what is interfering to you guys? Because showing an interest, being engaged, having an opinion on what you're doing, holding you to account, making sure you're doing your jobs to the standard that would be the ultimate authority with employers, is that interfering? Or is it just simply people doing their jobs?
One of the best jobs I had was at Blackburn Rovers, John Williams.
Yes.
he would come down at lunchtime.
I worked with John.
See if you agree with this.
Yeah.
I don't know how your relationship was. He'd
Yeah,
come
it was
down
good. It was good.
at lunchtime after training. He'd have a bit of lunch with you, and he'd start an argument. I'm sure he did it on purpose, but we'd end up, and I'd walk off, and then on the way home 2 hours later, be on the phone as if nothing had happened. We'd be the best of mates again. And that's
how it should be, right?
I was more than happy with that. All the time, he was pushing you. And I always said, if I ever bought a football club, I would employ him. He treated every penny like it was his own. It was Jack Walker's money.
It was Jack's money, yeah.
And he was a really good chief executive. That's a good type.
Yep.
The other type is you sign 5 players. One of them's not coming up to standard.
Mm-hmm.
All of a sudden, they stop listening to you and start listening to somebody else.
The agents.
And I tell you what, I don't know if you agree with this. Another thing that totally undermines you, and there will not be a club that's successful. There will not be a club that's successful if this happens, where the player can bypass you and goes to the chief executive,
yeah, that's
or
fundamentally
bypass the chief executive and goes to the owner. What sort of owner were you?
Well, you know the answer to that question.
I don't know.
Well, yes, you do, because we've spoken about it.
Well,
We've spoken about it specifically. I would hate.
Did you ever take calls from players?
No, absolutely not. My champion was my manager. If I start talking to players, you should get your coat, because that's not the relationship I want to have.
Happens.
That happens.
Yeah,
all
I
the
know.
time.
I know it does. But that
It
is that.
happens.
So when we're talking about interfering, you're talking about you guys always want a relationship with the money. You want a relationship with the owner. You don't want a relationship with the chief executive. You think they're the bag carriers. They're in your way. You want the guy that's got the ultimate decision, right?
I didn't see it like that.
No.
No.
Ultimately, the authority in a football club. When I was asking the question, I'm not trying to do her job in terms of posing you guys questions.
Oh, please do. I'm enjoying this.
Sorry.
It's not like him.
Is the interfering part, because I think you guys live in a little world where you think you can do and say as you want without any accountability. And I want to see why you think people asking you to be accountable for what you do is somehow interfering.
I don't know what you're on about now. We're not talking about that now. We're talking about.
Well, no, I'm asking because you haven't answered the question. The question was, what does interfering look like? What does it look like?
Interfering looks like when they send you a player you didn't want,
Right.
and he turns up in the dressing room and said, "Here you are.
That's a tad interfering, isn't it?
That's a tad." You know what I mean? Or sending a coach down and saying,
enough?
"Here's a
Yes,
here's
I
a coach.
I agree. Absolutely.
To coach the strikers to score goals, like you mean, to undermine you."
Who did that to
From
Sam?
Jim
Tell us.
Well, Derek Purvis did undermine. Couldn't bang in on the door, try and get in. So
That's one way to
you know what I
keep
mean?
him out.
You know what I mean? So every manager lets me in my dressing room. You shut up and get out. Mind you, I had to win the league to stay in the job to do that.
Guys, I could sit and listen to this all day, but we need to move on to the next topic, which is back onto the World Cup.
Yes.
So do you think that England have to win the World Cup for it to be successful for Gareth Southgate?
I have to say yes, based on the incredible journey they've had up to now, and everybody expects that. Not win it, get to the final, and that would be what I think the least that the press and the fans would expect, on the basis of just the fact that he's done not just him, the team, the players have done so well in the last World Cup, so well in the European Championships. So the expectation and the need to get to the final. It'd be okay. If they don't win it, it's okay. If they do win it, just absolutely wonderful.
I think, am I correct in saying if it pans out, it goes to plan, not if football ever does, they would meet France in the quarters?
Yeah.
I think so.
So I think
That'd be a difficult one.
I think if they get to the quarters and it's France and they get knocked out, I don't think the public will be too upset.
Mm-hmm.
I think if they were to get beyond France and they met Argentina or Brazil and they went out to one of them in the semi-finals, I think that'd be acceptable as well. Now you get to the final and you're playing the mighty Iran again, and you were to lose that. You're to lose that.
Or Iceland.
God, would I enjoy that? Anyway, but that's for another time. No, I think getting beat by. I think put it another way. If they get beat by France, get beat by, which obviously means it's deep into the tournament. Beat by France, beat by Brazil, beat by Argentina. That's acceptable. Anyone else beating them? Not quite sure.
Do you think the lesser squad than France then? Do you think they've lesser front 11 than France?
No, they're stronger. Pogba's not there.
Yeah. What?
Pogba.
Pudding.
So of course, guys, quite a lot of talented players have been left out of this England squad. I don't know if you saw that Reece James liked a tweet that was a quote from Paul Merson. And the quote was, "I just find it weird that Gareth Southgate is willing to gamble on Calvin Phillips and Kyle Walker, but not Reece James. If it was Harry Kane, he would be going. What's the difference?"
I thought Reece James was injured.
Yeah.
That's why he didn't go.
But the argument is, I suppose, Calvin Phillips has just come back from an injury. Kyle Walker had been
Do we
injured.
know how close Reece James is to... I really like Reece James.
Me too.
I think...
I do.
But how close was it? How close
I
was
think
he
the
being
argument
fit?
was
He
if
should have
you
gone
take
if he was-
Reece James, then you're basically saying you're quite confident you're going to get quite far along in the tournament because he wouldn't be able to play yet. But
you don't
Reece
take him,
liking that, do you think that affects any chances for him in the future with England, or it's not that deep?
Well, it'll be a different manager.
Sam doesn't care.
It'll be a different manager.
Oh, will it, Graham?
No. Let me rephrase that. You're of the opinion if he doesn't win it, he would walk.
Even if he does win it, I think he will. Because I think that's long enough.
I think
and
the
I think if
likelihood
he,
will be
if
another
he
manager.
wins it, he could. The only way down from that would be he'd have to win it again to actually stay where he is. It would be a great out if you leave after winning a World Cup.
It makes no sense for him to sign a new contract then, does it?
No.
He signed a new contract. It made no sense for the English FA. He's a tournament manager. He should be getting a contract after the tournament, surely.
See, I do a column on a Saturday morning on a very informative article it is. So I've been told by people.
When you actually read it yourself, yeah.
Not by you. But I've said that I'm amazed at the amount of criticism that gets directed towards England managers.
Yeah.
You know, you should all be rowing in the same direction. But when it comes to England, for some reason, they seem to want to isolate and fall out with the players under management.
But the Scottish media are also just as bad. You were slaughtering your manager after the European Championships. And it's only he got some results after the European Championships that repositioned Steve Clarke back into the hearts and minds of people saying that he's actually doing an all right job for Scotland.
I think we've been easy to criticise of late. And I just think it's because my life has been in English football for a very long time. As an outsider, I can look at it maybe through different eyes. And I just think at a time when you should be sticking together and being loyal to each other, the first hint of a problem, and I understand how the media works.
But that's British media.
Because
It's football.
That's British media, full stop.
I understand how the media works because some people feel they have to be chasing headlines all the time. And you try, like I'm on a show on a Monday morning, I try to be the sensible, reasonable voice of football, where I work with people who are just looking to get headlines and say outrageous things.
What are you looking at me for? Look at Jim for that.
So do you think that Gareth was right to take Calvin Phillips, or would you take a player who's recently been injured?
I think these boys should answer that question.
I think
They're better
Calvin
managers.
Phillips is one whether he really is really truly behind him, and him and Declan Rice are his number 1 and 2 in centre midfield, in his opinion, and they've taken him so far into tournaments, and I think that is where it lies. So that's why he's taken him on his reliability, and if he gets himself up to that level of fitness, we will see him playing with Declan Rice. That's
I
what I
think
feel.
it tells you a lot about the manager and how he sees the game. I think he will always want to play with 2 holding midfield players.
Yeah.
I think it'll be very interesting, as you alluded to. Bellingham isn't that. He's not a holding type.
No.
So who will he play? Don't be surprised if you see Calvin Phillips play, having played very little football this year. Yeah, that's how. I think that tells you a great deal about the manager and how he sees this team, or maybe how he sees football. Full stop.
Okay, and we're almost at the end, guys. But what I want to know is, away from England, which player are you most looking forward to watching in this World Cup?
Easy, Messi.
Yeah. So is he now the GOAT for you, Graham?
I always.
Has he had a good World Cup?
No, but you see a good World Cup, you're judging him by his standards. I never accepted the argument, he doesn't do it at World Cups. For me, the counter argument is every fortnight, or the way it's been reorganised, every week he'll be playing in the Champions League against the very best defenders that are out there, the same ones that played in the World Cups. And he would make proper defenders look as if they've got their shoelaces tied together. He's just not. just another level. So this is his swan song. I see him having a great World Cup, and if he does, that makes Argentina favourites in my opinion.
Sam, what about you?
Well, I'd love to see him do that, personally, but just not quite know whether he's got that level anymore. That legs runs a bit the same as Ronaldo, his age and so on. And of course, it will depend very much on the team around him, because he doesn't go running around. He has to get the service everywhere he's been. It's the service that made him show his abilities and his great play, particularly in Barcelona years.
Who else are you most looking
Mbappe
forward to
France.
seeing then? Okay, Mbappe. Yeah, and Simon?
That's what I would say. I think Mbappe's going to rip him a new one. Tragically, that might also be against England. If the English come through, do their job, pound for penny, they'll draw the Senegalese. You get some luck there because Mane is now injured. You get a less potent Senegalese side, but they're still dangerous. And then you've got the French coming up against it. I think the en masse interest is around the Brazilians, because I think they'll hand their goals around. I think Richarlison might be someone that scores a few goals in that World Cup. Neymar will do what he does. And I'll be interested to see how Jesus plays over there, because he's, if you talk to some of the guys over there, talk about his relationship with the national team, he's sort of played in a way that they've played him wide right on the left because he hasn't been confident about where he wants to play. He's now playing for Arsenal down the middle, in a much more confident way, but he's gone on a bit of a goal scoring drought. So he could come, but I think Brazil will win the World Cup. But I think it will be interesting to watch them and how they do it.
Okay, well, my last question, which you've kind of just answered there, is in one word. Do England win the World Cup? Big Sam?
No. Love them too, but I think France will win it.
Okay. Graeme?
I think they have a good chance.
Yeah,
not a great chance,
I
a
do.
good chance.
One word?
But I think they will come up short.
Okay.
So that's a no.
And
Can't do
Simon?
one word.
Okay.
Credible semi-finals. A credible semi-finals, England, I think.
So we're feeling positive here then, are we?
Realistic.
Okay,
Best
cool.
to be realistic.
Well,
You've asked a Scotsman if England's going to win the
yeah,
World Cup. Are you sure?
that was always going to happen, wasn't it? Thank you guys so much. It's been an absolute pleasure. Please give it up for Sam, Graeme and Simon. No Tippy Tappy Football will be back next week with special guest Ian Holloway. See you then.